At 0742 hours on March 6, 1945, Corporal Clarence Smoyer was hunched inside the turret of an M26 Pershing tank amid the debris-clogged streets of Cologne, watching as a German Panther crew swung their 75mm cannon toward an intersection where two American Shermans had just halted. He was 21 years old, with 7 months of combat behind him across France and Germany, credited with 5 enemy tanks destroyed. The Panther fired 2 shots. Both shells tore through the lead Sherman's gun shield, landing inches apart. 3 American crewmen were killed instantly. The tank commander tried to escape, but his left leg was severed below the knee. Smoyer had grown up in Porterville, Pennsylvania, coal country, where his father worked underground. He had never been in a fist fight. He had gone rabbit hunting once and felt sick afterward. Now he sat behind the gun sight of the most powerful tank America had built, watching black smoke billow from a Sherman crew compartment 2 streets away. By March 1945, the U.S. Army had lost thousands of Sherman tanks to German fire. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The Panther outweighed the Sherman by 10 tons. The Tiger was heavier still. German 75mm and 88mm guns could punch through Sherman armor at distances where American 75mm rounds simply bounced off German steel. During the Battle of the Bulge 3 months earlier, American tank battalions had been shattered. Entire companies lost half their vehicles in single engagements. Survival statistics made it clear. When a Sherman was hit, crews had only seconds to escape before ammunition detonated, turning 33 tons of steel into a furnace. The issue had been obvious since Normandy. The fix had been postponed for 3 years. Army Ground Forces Command, led by Lieutenant General Leslie McNair, insisted the Sherman was good enough. Tank destroyers, they said, would deal with enemy armor. American doctrine claimed tanks supported infantry and avoided tank-on-tank combat. German doctrine and combat experience disagreed. The Ordnance Department had designed a heavy tank as early as 1942. The T-26 program produced several prototypes. Each version added thicker armor, a stronger gun, and improved suspension. Each also increased weight and mechanical complexity. McNair's staff rejected them all. The Sherman had worked in North Africa, they argued. Why change it? By 1944, that logic was costing American tankers their lives. The Battle of the Bulge ended the debate. In December 1944, 400 German tanks, including Panthers and Tiger IIs, smashed into American lines. Sherman crews fought hard and died fast. After the Ardennes, no one could claim the Sherman was enough. In January 1945, the first 20 T-26 E3 tanks, later designated the M26 Pershing, arrived at the Belgian port of Antwerp. General Omar Bradley divided them between 2 veteran units, 10 to the 3rd Armored Division and 10 to the 9th Armored. The tanks reached a maintenance depot near Aachen, Germany, on February 17th. Division commanders selected their best crews for training. The Pershing used a different transmission than the Sherman, but the controls were familiar. Each crew fired 28 rounds to get used to the 90mm main gun. The flash was brighter. The recoil hit harder. Even through the intercom headset. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The blast made ears ring. Smoyer remembered his first live firing. A farmhouse stood 1,200 yards downrange. Major General Maurice Rose, commander of the 3rd Armored Division, stood 20 feet behind the tank with his staff. Rose had designated the target, the farmhouse chimney. Smoyer aligned the reticle and squeezed the trigger. The muzzle blast knocked Rose and every officer nearby flat onto their backs. The chimney disintegrated. Rose stood up, brushed the dirt from his uniform, and smiled. Smoyer destroyed 2 more chimneys at greater distances. Rose cleared the Pershing for combat. If you want to see how Smoyer's experimental tank performed in the streets of Cologne, please hit the like button. Every like helps bring these forgotten stories to more people. Please subscribe. Back to Smoyer. The first Pershings entered combat on February 25th near the Roer River. One was knocked out the following day by a concealed Tiger, but others destroyed German tanks at ranges where Shermans would have been powerless. By early March, the 3rd Armored Division was advancing toward the Rhine. Cologne lay on the western bank, a major industrial center, Germany's 4th largest city, now reduced to smoke and ruin. 262 Allied bombing raids had turned most of it into shattered masonry and twisted metal. Only the twin spires of Cologne Cathedral still stood, rising above the wreckage like grave markers. On the morning of March 6th, Smoyer's crew received their assignment. They would spearhead the push into downtown Cologne. Their Pershing, one of only 20 in all of Europe, would cross every intersection first, drawing fire from hidden anti-tank guns. Rose himself had selected them. It was meant to be an honor. Smoyer touched the small Bible in his breast pocket and watched the streets ahead close in with shadow. At 0800 hours, the Pershing rolled forward. Staff Sergeant Robert Early commanded from the turret. Corporal John Derrick loaded the 90mm shells. Private Homer Davis manned the bow machine gun. Private William McVeigh drove. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Smoyer handled the main gun. They had fought together since September 1944, through Normandy hedgerows and Ardennes snow, first in a Sherman. 3 weeks earlier, they had received the Pershing. The crew named it Eagle 7, after the Philadelphia Eagles. Before the war, Cologne had been home to 1 million people. Now perhaps 40,000 remained, hiding in cellars and subway tunnels beneath mountains of rubble. The streets formed narrow canyons of shattered stone. 3-story apartment buildings had collapsed into the roads. Tram cables twisted skyward like metal vines. Every intersection offered a dozen firing angles for German Panzerfaust teams. Any basement window could conceal an 88mm anti-tank gun. The 3rd Armored Division had reached Cologne's outskirts on March 2nd. 4 days of brutal, block-by-block fighting followed. German defenders turned the city itself into a weapon. Underground pedestrian tunnels linked basements across entire blocks. Soldiers called them mouse trails. German infantry emerged behind American lines, struck, then disappeared underground before a response could form. Snipers fired from church steeples and factory smokestacks. Anti-tank crews waited for American vehicles to pass, then fired into the thinner rear armor. The Pershing's strengths were clear. Its frontal armor was 4 inches thick, twice that of the Sherman. The 90mm gun could defeat any German tank at combat distance. But in city fighting, those advantages were reduced. A Panzerfaust fired from 20 feet away ignored armor thickness. Molotov cocktails dropped from 3rd-story windows splashed onto engine decks where protection was weakest. The Pershing weighed 46 tons. Many Cologne bridges could not support it. Streets Shermans crossed easily became hazards for the heavier tank. Smoyer watched through his periscope as Eagle 7 moved past what had once been a shopping district. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Mannequins lay among bricks and shattered glass. A streetcar rested on its side, windows blown out. Fire had consumed entire blocks. The smell of smoke and worse seeped through the tank's ventilation system. Every 40 yards, the Pershing halted while McVeigh checked the route ahead. Rubble could conceal mines. Shell craters could snap a track. The radio crackled with reports from nearby units. Shermans were clearing side streets. Infantry squads moved from building to building. German resistance was lighter than expected. Most Wehrmacht units had withdrawn across the Rhine during the night. Bridges were wired with demolition charges. Engineers waited for the signal to destroy them. Only rearguard forces remained west of the river, volunteers sworn to fight to the last round. Eagle 7 turned a corner and entered a wider avenue. Ahead, the twin spires of Cologne Cathedral rose into view, roughly half a mile away. The cathedral had survived the bombing by what many called a miracle. 262 air raids had reduced the surrounding city to rubble, yet the medieval structure remained standing. Its Gothic towers served as navigation points for every unit in Cologne. Maps referenced the spires. Radio calls mentioned them constantly. The Pershing advanced 1 block, then another. Streets widened as they neared the city center and grew more dangerous. Wide avenues meant longer sight lines. Longer sight lines gave German gunners more time to aim. Smoyer kept his eye glued to the gun sight, scanning windows and doorways. His right hand rested on the turret traverse. His left hovered near the trigger. At 0915, new orders came over the radio. German tanks were operating near the cathedral square. At least 2 Panthers confirmed, possibly a Tiger. American infantry had withdrawn after suffering casualties. Eagle 7 was ordered to move into the cathedral area and destroy enemy armor. Smoyer felt his mouth go dry. The Pershing had never fought a Panther head-on. Every crewman knew the numbers. Panther frontal armor measured 5 inches thick. Its 75mm gun could punch through 6 inches of steel at 1,000 yards. In North Africa and Normandy, single Panthers had wiped out entire American platoons. McVeigh increased speed. The Pershing's engine growled louder. The cathedral spires filled more of the periscope view. Somewhere ahead, German tank crews were waiting. Eagle 7 entered the cathedral district at 0930. Streets narrowed again. Buildings that still stood rose 4 and 5 stories high, forming urban corridors where sunlight barely reached the ground. Smoke from morning fires drifted through the ruins. McVeigh slowed the Pershing to a walking pace. At low throttle, the 46-ton tank was quieter, but the clatter of its tracks still echoed off the stone walls. Smoyer rotated the turret slowly, covering the left side of the street. Davis watched the right through the bow gun periscope. The 90mm main gun swept across storefronts and alley entrances. Empty windows stared back like hollow eye sockets. Before the war, this had been a commercial district, department stores, cafes, office buildings. Now it was a maze of collapse and shadow, where any doorway could conceal a Panzerfaust team. Radio transmissions came in short, urgent bursts. 2 companies of American infantry were pinned down 3 blocks east of the cathedral. German machine gun fire from multiple positions. Mortar rounds falling among them. They needed armor support, but no Shermans could reach them. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Rubble blocked the approach streets. Only the wide avenue Eagle 7 followed provided a clear route to Cathedral Square. Another message followed. 2 Sherman tanks from F Company had attempted to approach the cathedral from the north. Both were operating without infantry support, dangerous in city fighting, but F Company's riflemen were engaged elsewhere. The Shermans were ordered to reconnoiter the square, identify enemy positions, then withdraw and wait for reinforcements. Early acknowledged the transmission. Eagle 7 was ordered to link up with the F Company Shermans near the cathedral. 3 American tanks working together could pin down enemy positions long enough for infantry to move in standard combined arms doctrine. The 3rd Armored Division had carried out operations like this dozens of times since Normandy. The Pershing rolled past the burned-out remains of a German half-track. Its crew lay nearby, dead from American machine gun fire sometime within the last day. Beyond the wreck, the street opened into a small plaza. A stone fountain stood at its center, dry and scarred by shell fragments. The avenue continued straight toward the cathedral spires. At 0947, Smoyer heard it through his headset. 2 sharp, heavy booms echoing from ahead. Then silence. Then a 3rd report. Tank gunfire, unmistakable. The distinct crack thump of high-velocity rounds striking armor followed. Moments later, the radio exploded with frantic calls. An F Company Sherman had been hit. Crew bailing out. The 2nd Sherman taking fire. German tank position unknown but close to the cathedral. All units warned. Panther operating in the cathedral area. Early's voice came over the intercom, steady despite the chaos. Eagle 7 would continue forward. They were the only American tank in position to fight. The F Company Shermans were likely destroyed or disabled. Infantry could not advance while a German tank dominated the square. The mission remained unchanged: destroy enemy armor. McVeigh shifted gears. The Pershing picked up speed, still slow by open ground standards but faster than their earlier crawl. Speed meant noise. Noise warned the Germans. But speed also reduced the time spent exposed in any one spot. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Urban combat was always a balance of risks. Smoyer checked his ammunition. The ready rack held 6 90mm rounds within arm's reach, 3 armor-piercing, 3 high-explosive. Derrick had stowed additional round around a turret, organized by type. In a prolonged fight, they could fire about 20 rounds before needing to pull more from hull storage. Against a Panther, it likely wouldn't last that long. Either Eagle 7 would knock it out in the first few shots, or the German tank would destroy them. Tank versus tank battles were usually brief. The street ahead curved slightly left. Beyond the bend lay Cathedral Square. Somewhere in or around that plaza, a Panther crew was waiting. They had already killed at least 3 American tankers. They knew more were coming. Smoyer pressed his eye against the rubber pad of the gun sight. His fingers settled on the trigger. His right hand tightened on the turret traverse. Eagle 7 rounded the curve at 15 miles per hour, tracks clanking over broken pavement, exhaust pouring from the engine grills. The cathedral spires filled the forward vision blocks. Cathedral Square came into view at 0952. The Gothic cathedral dominated the skyline, its twin spires rising 516 feet above the ruins. The plaza in front stretched roughly 300 yards across. Once paved stone, it was now cratered and littered with debris. Beyond the cathedral, the Hohenzollern Bridge spanned the Rhine, rigged with enough explosives to drop the entire structure into the river. Smoke drifted across the square from fires still burning in nearby buildings. Through the haze, Smoyer spotted the first Sherman. It sat motionless in a side street running perpendicular to Eagle 7's avenue, angled as if it had halted mid-turn. Suddenly, smoke billowed from the open commander's hatch. The gun barrel pointed skyward at an unnatural angle. McVeigh stopped Eagle 7 one block short of the square. The Pershing rested in the shadow of a partially collapsed office building. From there, the crew could observe without fully exposing themselves. Early studied the scene through his vision blocks. The Sherman had been hit at least twice, likely within seconds. Precise fire. Skilled gunnery. The German crew knew exactly what they were doing. The second Sherman was not visible. Radio traffic placed it on the northern edge of the square, also disabled. That meant the German tank or tanks had clear fields of fire covering multiple approaches. Any American vehicle entering the plaza would be engaged immediately. Early made his choice. He would reconnoiter on foot. Leaving the Pershing stationary was dangerous, but driving blind into a prepared kill zone was worse. He needed to locate the German tank before committing Eagle 7. Early climbed out through the turret hatch and dropped to the street. An American soldier emerged from a doorway 30 yards ahead, Technical Sergeant Jim Bates of the Army Signal Corps. Bates carried a 16mm movie camera and wore a rucksack filled with film magazines. Since Normandy, he had documented the 3rd Armored Division's campaign, filming combat, interviewing soldiers, and recording liberated towns. His footage appeared in newsreels shown in theaters back home. Bates had been with an infantry squad when the first Sherman was hit. He had captured the German tank's muzzle flash, the shell striking the turret, and the crew's desperate attempt to escape. He had filmed the entire engagement. Now he wanted more. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. An American heavy tank in Cologne was a story. A duel between a Pershing and a German Panther would be historic. Early and Bates moved forward together, staying close to the building walls. They reached a corner that allowed them to watch Cathedral Square without exposing themselves. Early scanned the plaza carefully. The disabled Sherman was easy to see. Beyond it, partially hidden by a side street, he spotted the Panther. The German tank sat in a textbook ambush position, its gun aimed straight down the avenue the Shermans had used. The 75mm barrel jutted from the angular turret like a finger pointing into the kill zone. The Panther's crew had chosen well. From there, they could cover the entire square while remaining partly concealed. Any American tank entering from the north would present its vulnerable side armor. Early studied the layout. The Panther could not see Eagle 7's current position. The building blocked its view. But the moment Eagle 7 rolled into the square, the Germans would spot them. A frontal duel across 300 yards of open ground favored no one. Both tanks carried guns capable of penetrating the other's armor at that distance. But Early saw another option. A side street ran parallel to Eagle 7's avenue. If the Pershing looped around a block, it could approach from the west. The Panther's gun faced north. Its turret would have to rotate to engage a threat from the west. Turret traverse took time, maybe 3 or 4 seconds. Not much, but enough. Enough for one shot. Early returned to Eagle 7 and explained the plan over the intercom. They would move down the parallel street. At the intersection nearest the cathedral, they would turn left and enter the square. The Panther would be to their right, roughly 90 degrees off Eagle 7's gun. Smoyer would have a clean shot at the German tank's side armor, the thinnest plate, the killing shot. McVeigh acknowledged. Derrick loaded an armor-piercing round. Davis prepared the bow gun. Smoyer rotated the turret until the main gun pointed right, anticipating the angle they would need at the intersection. The Pershing's engine rose in pitch. 46 tons of steel began to roll. Bates positioned himself in a second-story window overlooking Cathedral Square. His camera was ready. Eagle 7 turned into the side street at 0958. The road was narrower than the main approach, barely wide enough for the Pershing. Debris littered the pavement. McVeigh steered around a shell crater, keeping a steady pace. Too slow, and they became an easy target. Too fast, and Smoyer wouldn't be able to aim. The intersection ahead appeared through the driver's vision blocks. Beyond it, Cathedral Square opened to the right. Smoyer pressed his eye to the gun sight, watching the angle where the Panther should appear. His finger rested on the trigger. The turret was already traversed 90 degrees, right? When they cleared the corner, the German tank should be in his sight picture. Should be. Combat never followed the plan exactly. 50 yards to the intersection. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. 40, 30. McVeigh held speed. The engine noise would alert the Panther crew. They would hear the Pershing before seeing it, but sound echoed strangely between the buildings. Direction was hard to judge. The German commander would need seconds to identify the threat. 20 yards. The Pershing's bow emerged into the intersection. Through his periscope, McVeigh saw the Panther immediately. It sat exactly where Early had described, roughly 110 yards away. Point-blank range for a 90mm gun. But the Panther's turret was already moving. The long barrel was swinging toward them. Someone inside the German tank had reacted faster than expected. McVeigh made a split-second decision. He did not stop. A stationary tank was a dead tank. Instead, he slammed the throttle forward. Eagle 7 lunged into the intersection, cutting across the Panther's line of fire. Smoyer saw the Panther fill his sight. The angular turret, the long gun, the dark muzzle swinging toward him. Every instinct screamed that he was staring straight into a 75mm cannon that could punch through his armor at this range. Training took over. He did not wait for the Pershing to halt. American tanks rarely fired on the move. The gun was unstabilized. Accuracy suffered when firing while moving. But stopping meant dying. Smoyer compensated for the motion, led the target slightly, and squeezed the trigger. The 90mm gun fired at 0959 and 12 seconds. The armor-piercing round crossed 110 yards in a fraction of a second. It struck the Panther's turret face just below the mantlet. Even through the blast and smoke, the impact was clear. Sparks erupted at the point of contact. Steel fragments spalled off the interior surface, becoming lethal shrapnel inside the crew compartment. Inside the Panther, Oberleutnant Wilhelm Bartelborth tried to understand what he was seeing. The tank bursting into the intersection was too low and angular to be a Sherman. It looked almost German. For a split second, he hesitated. Was it friendly? The question lasted less than half a second. Then the shell hit. McVeigh brought the Pershing to a stop in the center of the intersection. Eagle 7 was fully exposed now, no cover at all. But being stationary meant Smoyer could aim precisely. Derrick already had another armor-piercing round in his hands. The breech was open. Derrick slammed the round into place and locked it. Smoyer never took his eye from the sight. The first shot had landed high, a solid hit, but not a fatal one. The Panther was still alive. Smoyer adjusted his aim lower, targeting the side of the hull just beneath the turret ring. The Panther's side armor was thinner than its front, 40mm instead of 80. The 90mm gun could punch through it without difficulty. He fired again at 0959 and 17 seconds. The second round struck the Panther's right side, pierced the armor, and tore straight through the crew compartment. The shell exited through the left side, leaving 2 holes the size of dinner plates. Inside the tank, systems began to fail at once. Hydraulic lines burst. Ammunition ignited. Bartelborth threw open his hatch and leapt clear, landing behind the Panther, away from the Pershing. 3 more crewmen scrambled out as smoke poured from the engine deck. One man never emerged. Smoyer fired a third shot at 0959 and 23 seconds. The round hit low on the turret, just above where it met the hull. Fire erupted at the impact point, flames spreading rapidly as leaking fuel and burning hydraulic fluid fed the blaze. Within seconds, the Panther was fully engulfed. From the second-story window, Jim Bates kept filming. He captured the entire fight, 45 seconds from first shot to burning wreck. The footage showed it all. Eagle 7 entering the intersection, the German turret rotating, muzzle flashes, impacts, and the crew bailing out. Smoyer leaned back from the gun sight. His hands were shaking. The Panther was destroyed. Eagle 7 was undamaged. Every man in the crew was alive. The Pershing had proven itself. The Panther burned for 3 hours. Ammunition continued to cook off, sending sparks and fragments into the air. By noon, everything flammable was gone. The turret sat twisted at an odd angle, blackened and heat-warped. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. German soldiers' bodies lay scattered around Cathedral Square. Infantry supporting the Panther withdrew across the Rhine once their armor was destroyed. American troops moved into the area by early afternoon. Bates climbed down from his vantage point and approached Eagle 7. The crew stood outside the tank, smoking cigarettes and inspecting it for damage. There was none. The Panther had never fired. Bartleborth's hesitation had cost his crew the seconds that mattered. Bates filmed the crew posing beside their tank. Smoyer stood off to the side, uneasy with the attention. By 1400 hours, additional American units had secured the Cathedral district. Engineers began checking the Hohenzollern Bridge for demolition charges. Infantry cleared buildings methodically. Resistance was light. Most German forces had pulled back during the Panther engagement. The thunder of heavy tank guns in the city center had signaled that their defense was breaking. But the fight for Cologne was not over. German units still held areas east of the cathedral. Isolated strongpoints remained. Eagle 7 received orders to press on. The crew climbed back inside. McVeigh started the engine. The Pershing rolled deeper into the ruined city. At 1432, Eagle 7 entered a narrow street a few blocks from the cathedral. Buildings pressed in on both sides, forming a corridor barely wider than the tank. Ahead, the road opened into a small intersection. Beyond it lay the route toward the Rhine riverbank. A black automobile suddenly burst from a side street, speeding across the intersection. It weaved through debris at high speed. To Smoyer, it resembled a staff car, the type German officers used to move between command posts. In urban combat, any unidentified vehicle was a potential threat. Civilians had been evacuated weeks earlier. Anyone still in Cologne was either fighting or supporting the German war effort. Smoyer fired the coaxial machine gun. Tracer rounds streaked across the intersection, striking the car's body. Glass shattered, but the vehicle did not stop. It sped through the intersection and vanished down another street. At the same moment, from a concealed position to Smoyer's left, a German Panzer IV opened fire on the same car. Hidden behind a partially collapsed building, the tank was invisible to Eagle 7. Its crew had also spotted the vehicle and engaged it. The combined fire ripped into the car. It lurched to a stop. The driver slumped over the wheel. A passenger door flew open. A figure fell onto the street and did not move. Smoyer caught the muzzle flash from the German tank. A Panzer IV, an older model, likely a Mark IV Osf. If not as lethal as a Panther, but still deadly. Against a Pershing, the odds favored Eagle 7, but the Panzer's position was strong. It had cover. Eagle 7 was exposed. The German tank began to withdraw, backing deeper behind the collapsed building. Smoyer could see only part of the opening, not enough for a guaranteed kill shot. Then the Panzer vanished completely into the rubble. McVeigh tried to maneuver for a better angle, but the narrow street left little room to move. The building concealing the German tank was a 4-story residential block. The front facade had collapsed, but the rear section still stood. Interior walls were exposed through the break. The Panzer was somewhere behind those walls, shifting position for another shot. Smoyer made a decision. He couldn't see the German tank, but he could see the building. He rotated the turret until a 90mm gun was aimed at the base of the remaining wall. The high-explosive round already in the breach was designed to destroy structures and fortifications. He targeted the corner support, where the building's strength was weakest. The gun fired at 1,434 hours and 48 seconds. The high-explosive shell detonated against brick and concrete, blasting out a section of the corner support roughly 6 feet wide. For an instant, nothing happened. Then gravity took over. Without that support, the wall lost stability. For stories of masonry and timber collapsed inward. The building folded in on itself, cascading down in dust and debris. Tons of rubble crashed into the space where the Panzer IV had been hiding. The sound rolled through the street like thunder. Dust clouds billowed outward, blotting out visibility. When the air finally cleared, the building was gone. In its place stood a mound of shattered stone and twisted metal. Beneath it, a German tank lay buried. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Inside that tank, 18-year-old machine gunner Gustav Schaefer and his commander had only seconds to escape before the rubble sealed them in. They forced their way out through the turret hatch. Dust choked the air, making it hard to breathe. Rubble pinned the hull. They scrambled over broken masonry and bent steel beams, moving away from Eagle 7 before more shells could follow. The remaining crew members were still inside, forcing their way out through other hatches. Within minutes, all four had escaped. They disappeared into the ruins, heading toward the Rhine. By nightfall, they crossed the river and surrendered to American military police. Eagle 7 continued operating in Cologne for 2 more days. The city fell completely to American forces by March 8th. Engineers secured the Hohenzollern Bridge before German demolition teams could destroy it, though other Rhine crossings had already been blown. The cathedral remained standing, a Gothic monument rising above devastation. Bates's footage of the Panther engagement reached newsreel editors within a week. By late March, it was playing in American theaters. Smoyer's sister saw the film at a local cinema in Pennsylvania. She recognized her brother and brought their parents back the next day to watch it again. The 3rd Armored Division did not pause. By March 10th, they were pushing east across the Rhine, deeper into Germany. Resistance varied. Some towns surrendered without a fight. Others required brutal house-to-house clearing. The Wehrmacht was collapsing, but isolated units still followed orders. Fanatics and SS troops fought to the end. Hitler Youth members attacked American tanks with Panzerfausts. On March 30th, Major General Maurice Rose was riding at the head of a column south of Paderborn. His command style had not changed. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. He still led from the front, refusing to operate from a rear headquarters. Around 1800 hours, his jeep encountered a German armored unit that had broken through American lines. Tiger tanks blocked the road. Rose's driver tried to turn away, but a Tiger commander cut them off. The German emerged from the turret hatch and leveled a machine pistol at the jeep. Rose reached for his holster, either to surrender his weapon or to resist. The German fired. Rose was struck multiple times and killed instantly. He was the highest-ranking American officer killed by enemy fire in European theater. His body was recovered the following day by elements of the 3rd Armored Division. Smoyer's unit took part in the recovery. Rose's death hit the division hard. Soldiers who had served under him since North Africa felt the loss deeply. He had been demanding, but fair. He took the same risks he asked of his men. His funeral was held at the Netherlands American Cemetery in Margareton. Thousands attended. The war went on. The 3rd Armored pushed east through April, encountering resistance that collapsed quickly once engaged. By late April, German units were surrendering en masse. The Wehrmacht had ceased to exist as a coherent fighting force. On May 7th, Germany surrendered unconditionally. May 8th became Victory in Europe Day. Smoyer remained in Germany through the summer as part of the occupation force. Eagle 7 was eventually shipped back to the United States for evaluation. The Ordnance Department wanted to study the Pershing's combat performance. Engineers cataloged every scratch and dent. Ballistic experts measured barrel wear. Maintenance crews documented mechanical issues. In September 1945, Smoyer received orders to return home. He sailed from Bremerhaven to New York aboard a troop transport. The voyage lasted 8 days. He arrived at Fort Dix, New Jersey for processing. Within a week, he received his discharge papers. Corporal Clarence Smoyer, United States Army, service number 334900086, was officially released from active duty on September 24, 1945. He returned to Pennsylvania, to Laheyton, where his parents still lived, back to familiar streets and people who remembered him as the quiet kid who had never wanted to fight. He found work at a cement plant. In 1946, he married Melba Whitehead. They had 3 children. He rarely talked about the war, but the war was not finished with him. At night, he dreamed of Cologne, of the cathedral spires rising through smoke, of the Panther burning in the square, of a black automobile racing through an intersection caught between American and German guns, of a figure tumbling from the passenger door onto the cobblestones. That image would haunt Clarence for the next 68 years. For decades, Smoyer carried the weight of that moment, the woman in the car, the body on the street. He did not know who she was. He did not know whether his bullets had killed her or whether the German tank's fire had done it. He knew only that she was dead and that he had pulled the trigger. His wife, Melba, noticed the nightmares. He would wake swinging at enemies only he could see. The memories were so sharp that decades felt like days. In the 1970s, his son Barry died of a heroin overdose. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Melba later developed Alzheimer's disease and eventually forgot his name. She passed away in 2017 after 71 years of marriage. The people who had anchored Smoyer's civilian life were gone. The war remained. In 1996, at age 73, Smoyer saw Jim Bates's footage of Cologne for the first time. The documentary on the 3rd Armored Division included the Cathedral duel, but it also revealed something Smoyer had never seen clearly during the fight: the black automobile, the machine gun fire, the passenger falling from the car. A woman, young, dead. The image confirmed what Smoyer had feared for 50 years. He had killed a civilian. The realization was devastating, but it also created a need for closure. He wanted to know who she was. He wanted to apologize to her family. He wanted forgiveness, even though he did not believe he deserved it. In 2013, at age 89, Smoyer returned to Cologne. A German journalist had researched the incident and identified the victim, Katharina Esser, 26 years old, the youngest of 4 sisters. She had cared for her parents while her sisters married and started families. She worked as a grocery clerk and attended night classes in home economics. On March 6, 1945, she and her employer tried to flee the city. They were caught in the crossfire. The journalist arranged a meeting at Esser's grave. Smoyer arrived expecting to face his guilt alone. Instead, Gustav Schaefer was waiting, the German machine gunner whose Panzer IV had also fired at the car, the man buried under rubble when Smoyer collapsed the building. Both were nearly 7 decades older than they had been in 1945. Both carried the same memory. Both believed they had killed Katharina Esser. They met on the cathedral steps. Smoyer held out his hand. Schaefer took it. Together, they walked to the mass grave where Esser was buried with other civilian victims. Neither man knew whose bullets had killed her. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. In the chaos of urban combat, certainty was impossible. What mattered was that they had both fired. They shared responsibility. They shared guilt. Schaefer placed yellow roses on the grave. Smoyer knelt to do the same and lost his balance. Schaefer caught him before he fell. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. 2 old men who had once tried to kill each other now held one another up at the grave of the woman caught between them. They became friends. Letters crossed the Atlantic. Video calls linked Pennsylvania and Germany. They spoke of the war not as enemies, but as survivors trying to understand it. Schaefer died in 2017. Smoyer sent flowers to the funeral with a note: "I will never forget you, your brother in arms, Clarence." On September 18, 2019, Clarence Smoyer received the Bronze Star for Valor at a ceremony in Washington, D.C. He was 95 years old, the last surviving member of Eagle 7's crew. The other crewmen received their medals posthumously, accepted by their families. Clarence Smoyer died on September 30, 2022, at his home in Allentown, Pennsylvania. He was 99 years old. Every March 6 since 2013, yellow roses have appeared on Katharina Esser's grave in Cologne. Someone remembers. Someone still apologizes. The Panther still burns in old photographs taken in front of Cologne Cathedral. The Pershing that destroyed it rests today in the National Armor and Cavalry Museum. The film footage remains, 45 seconds that changed how America understood armored warfare. But the real story was never about tanks. It was about men who went to war, killed because they were ordered to, and spent the rest of their lives trying to live with what they had done. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do us a favor. Hit the like button. Every like helps share this story with more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We are rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every day. Stories of tank gunners who never wanted to fight but became the best at what they did. Real people, real heroism, real guilt, real redemption. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from: the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia. Our community spans the world. You're not just watching, you're helping keep these memories alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making sure Clarence Smoyer and Katarina Esser are not lost to silence.